Well, good morning, everyone. Don Cramer with the Cramer Group at Urban Nest Realty. Welcome to episode 71 of Coffee with Cramer. Again, I'm Don Cramer with the Cramer Group at Urban Nest. My partner, Colleen Schaefer, sends her best today. She is doing the real estate thing here this morning. I'll be catching up with her as well. It is a busy time in Las Vegas real estate. And, it's important to sometimes go back to little basics. And that's what today's episode's about. We're kind of doing buying a home in 2020 COVID edition. So if this is your first time to the show, do us a big favor, hit the like button. Also comment below if you've got some questions. There's some things we're going to go over here in today's episode and kind of go through a lot of the steps that'll be through the home buying process and sort of explain how it's a little different right now during COVID. But you'll learn over through today, a lot of things are the same. Now, we actually get asked this question quite a bit. And it's because why? Well, buying a home is not a frequent chore. It's not like going to go get gas at the gas station. It's not even going to get your physical in some cases, or going to get your teeth cleaned. Those are things that you're doing on a regular basis. Going to get gas, fuel for your car. That could be once a week, once every couple of weeks. Going to the grocery store once a week, maybe even a couple times a week. Going to the doctor, get your physical once a year. Some cases once every 6 months. We got to monitor some stuff. Go to the dentist a couple times a year. So you get to know the people, you get to kind of know the routine. Well, buying a home is more on average a 7 to 10 year process. So think of it this way. If you did something every 7 to 10 years, how good would you be at it? Probably not. It'd be like myself, who when back in the day used to play a lot of golf. I was a golf professional. At a golf club, played a lot, played with members, played some events. Well, when you're working on hitting golf balls, practicing, putting, going out and playing, your skills are fairly sharp, kind of learning from some people. You sharpen those skills some more. Well, if you did it once every 7 to 10 years, sometimes friends of mine joke at me, when are you going to get back out and play? It's a little more so than a rusty gate. So you're definitely not at optimum. And, buying a house every 7 to 10 years, and in my personal case, the last time I bought a house, although recently we purchased one, but the time before that was almost 20 years. So a lot changes over time. Technology changes, processes change, builders change, construction standards change, designs change. Their legality and regulation changes. So all those things add up along that journey. So doing something every 7, 10 years does not make you that sharp. However, that's why you do bring on a realtor, real estate agent that does do this on a regular basis. And as a professional team here at the Cramer Group, we work with dozens of people over the course of the year with buying, selling, and investing in real estate. So, and we're also going to classes, we're going, education programs, things of that nature to continue to hone our skills. As some of you may or may not know, also belong to a network of some of the top real estate agents in the country. So we are continuing to strive for that excellence as well. So that being said, today's episode's a little bit, kind of a 101 edition about purchasing a home. And so not only is it for 7 to 10 year people, this is also for that first time home buyer. Millennials, interestingly enough, now make up the largest buying segment of real estate in the United States. There was a time not too long ago they didn't think millennials were going to be leaving the house. Well, they're the home buyers right now. Gen X is actually kind of battling it out for third place with boomers. So it's interesting to see there. But, even millennials and even Gen Zs, they're going into their first home they have questions and they need the guidance. And that's kind of a little bit what this episode's about. And we're going to take this, excuse me, kind of step by step. Some of it may be in an exact, some of it we try not to put the cart in front of the horse here, but kind of give you an idea as to how we guide along there. There's another thing we've got too that's important. So we call it our home buyer's guide. We make this available to our clients in our buyer's consultation. So we go through a lot of these in the steps. And two, if some people are interested, they shoot us an email and we can send a PDF copy over. And like I said, and we update these periodically throughout the year because some things change and you not just need the steps, but also kind of like what's going on in real estate, what's going on mortgage rates, things of that nature to kind of bring you up to speed. So let's get started, shall we? So buying a home, like I said, in 2020 is not much different pre-COVID as it is during COVID. In a COVID situation, we may do a couple things differently. It's in regards to searching for properties. We may spend more time online searching. One, so we can minimize exposure or minimize access to properties because they may be lived in, may be owner occupied still. So for both the seller and the buyer, we're trying to minimize, minimize interaction there. Again, maximizing social distancing. Also, too, we're going out, we're wearing personal protective equipment. We've got a little hand sanitizer. I know a lot of the buyers, they've already got their own kits because, we're kind of going out in public spaces. So when we go out to actually shop for a home, which is actually further down the line than you think, again, we're doing those things in the safest manner possible because that's what that's about. However, when it comes to lending, things of that nature, there have been some slight tweaks, and we're going to get into those a little bit today. But we're not going to do a deep dive into lending because for that, we're going to have a separate episode with one of our lending partners and talk about those steps on the home purchase side. However, there have been some changes, and there continues to be changes in lending during this COVID period that we weren't seeing pre-COVID. So let's kind of take a step back. So the first thing that most people do is they get on their app and they go to one of the apps. Probably starts with the letter Z because that's where most people are looking and they're flipping through like, hey, look, check this out. Well, you know what? It's like window shopping. It's like we're going to look at cars. We're going to go to the car website. We're going to go look at suits or clothes or hats. Or things of that nature. We're going to go to those sites and we're going to do some shopping or pre-looking around. And we like to do it. You know what? It's fun. We go look at, see some images, get some beautiful things. We're getting interested. Okay, so now we're at the point like, okay, we're getting ready to buy a house and kind of why. Okay, well, one, might be starting a family. Or number two, you know what? Hey, we've got our job position staked out. We're in good shape. We don't want to rent anymore. We don't want to be in a condo anymore. We want to be in a single family home. We have those certain needs. And we want to start, kind of laying down some roots in the community. So buying that house allows people to do that. And community is a big, important part of the experience of owning a home and being a part of that. So purchasing the place, also too, you start putting, you start building some equity because overall home ownership is one of the largest single sources of wealth for people in the United States. And so that's a big part. So, if you work it over time, over the long haul with appreciation paying off your mortgage, you have a over a course of time, the time of paying off the mortgage and living in there, a pretty nice amount of equity in your home. And in some markets, some even better than others. It's amazing how some markets have appreciated over time. People that bought in 2010 at the lull of the market, well, they're sitting on a lot of equity right now. So they're kind of at this point in time, hey, what do we do next? The family moved out. Do we need to downsize? Well, and that brings on this next buyer group. So buying that home, okay, you start getting an idea of where you want to live, things of that nature. A lot of these things people do on their own. But then it's at that point in time where, okay, hey, we probably need to sit down with a realtor. And there's one other person we're going to probably sit down with, whether it's first, second first, something like that. And that second person is a lender. And you may go and interview a couple of realtors, and you may go and interview a couple of lenders. Well, if you start with a realtor in most cases, and I'm going to kind of take it from this angle, you're going to meet with a realtor. One of the questions you're going to ask is, do you have some lenders that clients have been happy with? And in cases like myself, we have several lenders that we've worked with over the last several years that clients have been happy with and are able to offer up loan programs and work with clients in being able to get them the loan necessary to purchase the house. So, that's going to be one of your interview questions. So, sitting down with a realtor, let's say, we're going to go through a buyer's consultation. We're going to go through these questions that are part of our 101, and which is, first off, what are you looking for? Do you have sort of an idea about the part of town you want to live in, or what price point you want? What is your job? And then we're gonna say, okay, well, how do you intend to pay for the house? Do you have a large amount of cash? Are you buying a home because maybe you received an inheritance, or maybe your family put money away, so you may have some cash to go and purchase a home. Those are usually more remote cases, but those are questions we want to ask, because the other question might be, well, no, we need to get a loan to purchase the place. Okay, great. Well, we need to get you in touch with a couple of lenders. Again, we're not going to get into the specific loan programs because that's for a separate episode, but the type of employment you have may impact it. There are definitely various home options. If you're a veteran, again, VA loans. So there's all types of different programs that we'll talk about in a separate episode on lending. But with meeting with a lender, or even interviewing a couple after you meet with me as your realtor, we'll start to figure out, okay, which lender or loan program best fits you. And at that point in time, we may receive great news, which is, okay, you're employed, or you have your own company, and your tax returns over the last couple of years are great, and you've got money in the bank, your credit score is good. Well, then you're going to be able to figure out, okay, you are qualified for up to this amount of money. And so you'll be given what's called a pre-qualification, because after some initial screening, initial documentation, and things of that nature. Now, that's not starting the full loan application. You're not fully approved. You are what we call sort of pre-qualified. And we definitely want to get that out of the way, and even maybe start moving further down, because in the COVID world, this is one thing. Even though we are looking out there more, so we're working with we're competing against a lot more people that are qualified. So they're more in a position, power to purchase, than probably we were maybe even 6 months or a year ago. Some people, an agent may be taking some people around and looking around, but not, they're just not quite step B yet. When we're working with clients, we definitely want to make sure we're at step B, which is, okay, have you met with a lender, or what is your plan to purchase a home? And if it's a cash purchase, we have a verification of funds. If it's a loan, you've had a meeting with the lender and have had an initial pre-qualification process complete. So that during that pre-qualification process, you're going to kind of figure out how much you can afford. And one thing we talk about a lot right now are the historically low interest rates are driving a lot of the demand. And I printed this out here because I think this is important to give you a little context. So right now, 30-year mortgage rate with really good credit. We're talking 740 above, into the 800s, things of that nature. You're looking at interest rates at 3, and in some cases now they're starting to push into the high 2s. Well, let's just start with a 3% mortgage, 3% rate. So for every $100,000 you borrow, that payment and interest is approximately just shy of $452. So for $451.92 for every $100,000. So on a $400,000 loan, so if you're buying a $400,000 house and you didn't put any down, or you bought a $500,000 house and you put $100 down, and that loan amount is $400,000, that payment is $1,807.68, and that's your principal and your interest. Now, there's other things to factor in, but that gives you a baseline. Now, if we went up a half a percentage point to 3.5%, your loan payment for every $100,000 is $527.38. Again, let me repeat, $527.38. So again, on that same $400,000 loan, you're looking now at a principal and interest payment of $2,109.52 over that 30-year life. So again, just a little smidge over $300 from a half a percentage point change. Now, moving up to a 4% loan, you're looking at a rate per $100,000 amount of $602.87. So for, again, $400,000, that is now turned into a $2,411.48 monthly principal and interest payment. And then lastly, right now we're going to kind of cap this off at 4.5%. Your payment would be $678.39 per $100,000, or $2,713.56. Now, some people out there are going to go, well, you know what, Don, Colleen, we're just going to kind of wait. We're going to time things or things of that nature. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Well, just to give you a little sense of timing, a 4 to 4.5% interest rate was not uncommon 18 months ago. 18 months ago, we had higher interest rates. COVID was nowhere to be found. We were at full employment. So interest rates were ticking up, and they were ticking up, and we were seeing 4.5% rates, seeing 4.75. We were actually pushing into 5 even with some of the lower credit scores. So to go from $1,807.68 from about a year and a half ago's number of $2,713.56, that $400,000 property over the last 18 months, because of interest rates, swung the payment by almost $900 a month. Almost. So that gives you, $11,000 and change over, or high 10s, $11,000 over the course of a year. And again, on a 30-year mortgage, that's a big number. So when we talk about interest rates and we talk about historically low interest rates, just over that 18-month period can make such a difference in your monthly payment that it's really changed the game as to what you can afford. So if you think about it and said, well, Don, I can only afford a $1,800 a month payment from a year ago, well, that probably impacted you. Instead of saying, you know what, I can't buy a $400,000 house, I can only buy a $300,000 house. Well, $300,000 house to a $400,000 house in Las Vegas it's a pretty decent difference. So keep that in mind when we're thinking about historically low interest rates. So again, based on your job situation, based on your credit score, based on whatever debts you have, you're going to meet with a lender, get pre-qualified. They're going to qualify you up to a certain dollar amount and a certain interest rate. I highly encourage, if you're kind of starting to do this planning, that, if you have certain debts, whether it's a credit card or maybe a car payment or high interest loan or something of that nature, you take care of some of those so that way you can maximize your purchasing power and make sure your credit's in a great place. Again, meeting with a lender is one of the best things to do, because they will also provide some options along the way that might help you with that journey. So one of the things, because I mentioned that, is don't look at saying, okay, I'm ready to go buy a house now. I need to go get a realtor and I need to go get a lender. You may look at this based on your situation and just ask those simple questions 12 months from now, or even 18 months from now, or 6 months from now, because planning helps you chart the course, again, on your largest purchase, probably, first-time home buyer, certainly the largest purchase of your life. So starting early, starting several weeks out, several months out, helps you prepare, helps you understand, okay, I need to go correct this, or I need to address this before I do that. So it's basically doing your homework. And that's your homework, which is getting your credit in great position if it's not already. Getting, your employment information or your tax records if you're your own company in great position to maximize, your loan capability and potential. So meeting with that lender, meeting with me, we're gonna figure out, okay, we know how many dollars we want our budgets around, and we also know a little bit about where you want to buy. So again, let's go back to that $400,000 loan payment. So if based on the loan, you're going to do a 10% down on a $400,000, so that's roughly about $440 on a home. If you're able to do a 20% down, and there's advantages to those. Again, we're going to cover it in lending. You may buy a $500,000 house and put 20% down, and then have a $400,000 mortgage payment. Now, that's going to determine, okay, well, how much can we buy? Or is our budget $4? Is our budget $450? Is our budget $5? So when we factor in your down payment and your mortgage, that's going to be your purchasing power. Now, once we've got yourself pre-qualified, met with a lender, we're in good shape, we're going to kind of go through both we'll probably a little bit in parallel. We're going to talk about wants and needs. We're going to talk about needs first, because, okay, in a lot of cases, first need is location. Is it close to your employment? Is that most important? Is it close to, okay, we need to be near a certain school? Is it close to, because we need to be near a certain house of worship? I mean, and those are important things. Do we, is being closer to shopping and certain amenities more important? And those are the things that, as a home buyer, you have to figure out. If you have more flexibility, great. If you have less flexibility, we need to know those things. So if you're thinking, okay, I need to be in Summerlin North because of X, okay. If you're like some clients I've gotten to say, Don, if it's anywhere from the southwest by the Curve, which is IKEA and Sunset, all the way out to Anthem Country Club, and including Mountain's Edge and Southern Highlands, well, that's a pretty broad area, because you might look at it and say, well, all I need to do is hop on the 215 and I'm at the Strip or at my office or at the airport, things of that nature. So again, location. Then next thing you go, okay, based on location, we'll understand saying, okay, based on location and based on price, what kind of homes typically come in at those price ranges, and they can swing quite a bit. Home in Summerlin, $400,000 house in Summerlin may look a lot different than a $400,000 house in Spring Valley, or likewise in Mountain's Edge, or likewise in Seven Hills, like even downtown. Let's say there's some great, awesome neighborhoods downtown, like McNeil Ranch. $400,000 house there. A lot of different design, different age, different build, different style. So again, that's going to factor in. Then you're going to look at things like, okay, what's important? Number of bedrooms. Do we have enough bedrooms, or do we have enough rooms? And that's really a big COVID impact this year. Beforehand, we were looking at, okay, we don't need as much space because we wanted to be more outdoors, or we were going to go to the gym more, things of that nature. kids are in school. Well, that COVID's kind of thrown a lot of that on our head, where we've got people looking at it and going, okay, I no longer need one home office because, husband and wife or the couple are working professionals. They need two home offices because they're both needing to do work from home or a blend. So they may not be able to fit into one large space because they're on the phone or they're in meetings. So we're seeing two home offices. Again, if with children, instead of the interim, okay, we're going to turn the dining room into a classroom. Well, now we're looking at either maybe a bonus room or a flex room or a loft space or even a large bedroom that may be convertible into home learning space, because there looks like Clark County School District initially is going to start teaching from home versus the blend they were looking at. So again, looking at those spaces. So let's look at let's look at bedrooms. Let's look at bedrooms, bathrooms, and then how many vehicles do we have? In most cases, we got 2-car garages, and in some cases, might need 3. And then start looking at some of the other items that might be important to you. Open, nowadays we're dealing with more open floor plans. We've kind of eliminated things like the formal living room and designs and kind of created the great room space. Kitchen flowing into the dining room and the great room area. Kind of open sight lines. So architecturally, we've had some changes over the last several years, but depending on your style or things of that nature, we may be looking at a kind of floor plan that sort of best fits you. 1-story versus 2-story. Do you need, if we're dealing with 2 stories, do you need a downstairs bedroom? Maybe you've got a generational family member that might need a downstairs space, so they didn't have to use the stairs as well. Or do you have a lot of family members that may be coming into town, or certain guests coming into town quite a bit, and they're staying at your place versus the hotel? These things happen, so those are things you need to consider. And then things like, okay, do we have enough space in the backyard, or based on our location, do we have places, to kind of get out and about? Then we'll start looking at other features and amenities like pool, other things of that nature. How important is that to you? And other pieces of, okay, with resales in a lot of cases, what is the condition of the home? Now, in Las Vegas, unlike a lot of other markets, a lot of our inventories, 20 to 30 years old. Now, we definitely have some pre-1980 homes. There's no question about it. But in a lot of spaces we're dealing with, we deal with a lot of houses that were built when the big build booms were going on in those 90s and early 2000s periods. So a lot of those houses may or may not be renovated or updated. We may have certain types of appliances or cabinetry or countertops. So that's going to be also a big driver both in price point and availability in buying, because one thing that does move probably a little faster than not are homes that are more updated and turnkey ready. And that's a term we probably use maybe a little more loosely than not. But even a 20-year-old home, 25-year-old home, we've seen it where if they've upgraded the countertops to quartz or a nice granite versus the tile, at the very least repainted and new hardware in the cabinets, especially if they were good quality to begin with, or even replace the cabinets, stainless steel appliances, tile or wood laminate flooring, shutters, fresh paint, nice carpeting or refresh carpeting. Those types of homes where people don't have to do a project command both a little more price point and also they move a lot faster. So again, that those are things to consider. So if you're thinking about a home, you may want to think about a home and say, okay, our dollars may go a little further if we find the right location, and we know this home may be a little bit of a project over the 5 or 10 year period we plan to own a house. So think about that as well. I've got a good friend of mine. We're going to be looking for a property. The good news is he likes home projects. So So looking at that opens up our availability, both in price point, locations, and things of that nature, to where he may find the house he's looking for that's maybe a bit of a project, because he knows over time that's going to turn out great, versus one that's okay, I don't have to go do anything for a bit. So again, factor that in. So what you want to do is make a wish list, of wants and needs, and start with your needs first. Big needs: rooms, spaces, things of that nature, and then things that you're willing to go with. There's some people that say, I need to have a view. I need to be close to a trail system, things of that nature. Put those in, but be prepared to cross a couple things off of your list, because it's if we're limited in budget, that will limit how much of our wants and needs are truly checked off. So again, factor that in. So once we've established, affordability, price point, we've established location, we've established his wants and needs, we're going to definitely start putting a search together and start looking at options and items. Great news is with technology, we're going to send that stuff out to you, and you're going to be able to look at it and make notes. We'll do Zoom calls. We'll even review some of them. This is great. It's like, okay, hey, I like this, or hey, I like that. Unfortunately, for better or worse, not everyone uses great photography, so some of them don't tell us a complete story. But we've got agents out there, or we have listings too, where we're putting some great content out there, because that is key. Is content's king, even in listing inventory. So the better story we can tell in that home visually, over the internet, over a Zoom call or FaceTime, and look at those things, the faster we can kind of narrow down, okay, what we're going to go look for. And then when it comes time, we're going to select some houses, and we're going to go out and tour them and make arrangements. Now, there's some houses we can see, and there's some houses we can't see. We can't just go walk into every one of them. We're gonna reach out to the agents if the house is tenant occupied, because let's say it was a rental, but they're planning to sell the property, but the tenant is still in place until a certain mortgage time, until their lease ends, or their lease is getting ready to come up and they're going to go month to month until the property sells. Well, those we can't go in and look at, and that's because of COVID restrictions. So again, that's an impact from COVID. Owner occupied, again, we're going to be a little sensitive about that, and with COVID out there. And then we're going to have some properties that are vacant and a little more accessible to view. Again, even in a vacant home, we're going to practice safe COVID viewing guidelines with masks, PPE, hand sanitizers, things of that nature, and safe distancing to maximize the best opportunity to view the house safely. So we're going to go out, we're going to view, and we're going to go take a look. And what we like to do is view the home, get a couple of them going, and see, okay, are we on target? Are we meeting your needs? You're meeting us. The buyers that know more what they're wanting and what they're willing to compromise on or hold firm to, the faster. If it goes, I don't know, well, a lot of times, even before we go out, we'll probably try to flush some of those questions out. And sometimes we may have to go look at a couple of them in a couple of extremes to know what you will rule out, what you don't like, or what kind of pops in and do like. And those things happen. And I've had that with clients. We started with one direction, but in another direction, their priorities changed along the way, and that happens. So that's us as realtors, is to listen, to be aware, and to find the right properties, because your time is just as valuable as our time. So we want to make sure we're looking at the right properties that fit you and fit your style and livelihood. So once we narrow it down, we're going to go, okay, hey, we've got the lending plan in place. We know how we're going to we know how you're going to buy the home. We've got it narrowed down to a couple properties, and we're going to have to move fast, because this is an ever-changing fast market. We don't have as many homes as we normally do this time of the year than in most cases, because of just how busy things are. We're not adding as many houses to the market as the demand are gobbling up. So we do need to move quick. So if you're thinking about, hey, this house popped up on the market, we want to, and this one looks like it checks off the boxes, we're going to go schedule an appointment and go look at that and say, okay, hey, what do you think? And like, okay, this is good. All right, then it gets down to our job to say, all right, now that we've looked at that house, or we've looked at a couple of houses and stack ranked it, 1, 2, 3, here's our top 3. Then we're going to start looking and say, okay, we're going to get with the other agent. We're going to figure out what's important to them, and then draft up an offer. And we're going to put together an offer to purchase. And that offer to purchase is going to go through quite a few things as to how you as a buyer intend to buy the house. So how are you going to buy it? How much cash you're putting down? Are you going to be able to meet what the seller is asking for with regards to earnest money? And earnest money is going to be a term that's going to come to with regards to, that's kind of showing how serious are you in purchasing this house. Do you meet the requirements of that earnest money deposit? Give you a sense, an idea, an earnest money deposit amount may be normally somewhere around 1 to 2 percentage points. It may be different, but 1 to 2 percentage points is not a bad rule of thumb. Now that deposit does get applied to your ultimate purchase of the house. And that deposit is recoverable at various stages through the purchase process should the purchase contract be canceled. The further you move along, the more that earnest money is at risk, because the house has been taken off the market for a period of time and was not marketable. So just keep that in mind. So we've got earnest money, we've got the financing plan and your down payment. So all that's going to come together. Then you're going to go, okay, as part of this, we're going to go, okay, we're going to need X number of days to do what's called a buyer's due diligence. This is your period to have the house inspected and for you to view the home, things of that nature, and determine, is this the right house? Is this house sound based on the inspection, based on what you need? Now, as a first-time home buyer, we're going to want to make sure that that the house you're purchasing is in very good condition. It is safe, and will be able to last you a period of time. And that home inspection is a good general overview. And in some cases, we may want supplemental inspections based on the age of the house or type of construction. We may want a roof inspection. We may want a specific pool inspection if the house comes with a pool and it's an older one. We may want to, in certain parts of town, want a pest inspection. So again, those are those types of things that you do during the buyer's due diligence. And that can take anywhere from 7 to 14 days, depending on the size and style of the house, or also if the buyers are coming in from out of state. So we have a little time and flexibility. But in a normal situation, in most circumstances, a 10 days buyer's due diligence is probably a good starting basis. And then you've got a couple other things, such as other terms, such as the escrow and title, and we're going to talk about those more specifically. But there is going to be, in Nevada, when you purchase a house, we go through an escrow and title company. And from a buyer's side, we can suggest and recommend several title and escrow companies that clients have used that have had great successes. And there's some that our brokers are very well aware of. And sometimes that's very important, because making sure the house is delivered with a clean title is very important. And that is something not to be taken for granted. The other thing too is escrow. So a lot of title companies and escrow companies are under one umbrella. So they will hold on to the deposits and not release anything until so authorized by both parties, or so authorized, as part of the sale. East Coast is a little different. You've got an attorney, but out here in Nevada, we're title and escrow. So we're going to suggest a title company, XYZ Titles, XYZ, ABC name, and title escrow officer, Again, we want to work with really good title companies that can do things and service people and do the research and necessary that are going to help our buyers through the process. So there's buyer's due diligence. We've got title and escrow company, and some of those are going to be paid for. So, for example, escrow. In a lot of cases, depending on the market, and in this market is pretty much we see is that the buyer and seller both mutually split the total escrow fees. Now, the seller provides a owner's title policy to make sure they're delivering the house clear title. If my clients are buying a house with a loan, well, then they're buying a house and with a loan, and that lender is going to want a title policy on that as well. So, and that's usually paid for by the buyer as part of the buyer's closing costs. And those, you're going to hear that term a little more so too, closing costs. So you've got escrow fees, you may have a buyer's title policy, and then we move to the next step. Is this house in a HOA or common interest community? In a lot of cases in Las Vegas, that's a very common situation. I live in an HOA. There's reasons for it. We'll get into that in another video, but if you're dealing with a common interest community, there are certain things that the buyer is going to be responsible for and some things that the seller. Now, some of those are negotiable and some of them are not. So we're going to work on certain negotiations from the buyer's side on what we like the seller to pay for with regards to the HOA and common interest community. They will be buying a resale document. That is a resale purchase package from the HOA because that is required by them. So they're going to do that. But then there's some other things like deposits, transfer fees, things of that nature that are, again, negotiable. And there may be some other things negotiable. Things like furniture, fixtures, things of that nature, or mostly furniture items, things of that nature. We try to keep offline as a separate bill of sale, especially with lending, because loans are more around the house versus furniture and things of that nature. And then two, we're going to write up the contract to say, okay, hey, let's make sure we're clear as to what's also being transferred with the house. Is the house coming with the washer dryer that we saw in the garage? We want to verify that from the the listing records. Also, too, lighting fixtures, window coverings, things of that nature. And that becomes a very sensitive subject, and we'll get into that in a future episode, things called fixtures. So because if they're affixed to the house, normally they convey. But those are become very big sticky points. So we want to get those cleared and identified way up front in the purchase agreement. And then two, how long is it going to take to get the appraisal complete? Because an appraisal is going to need to be done on a loan. In this case, as busy as it is, and we're looking at, appraisals should be done somewhere between 15 and 21 days. But again, make sure your lender's got a good sense of how appraisals are being turned back. So we've got the buyer's due diligence, we got the negotiation points, we got the appraisal period, and then the next piece is the loan contingency period. How long do you need to do to get that loan in place? And again, this gets back to what I said. Even though you got pre-qualified, getting the application going and getting all of those things out of the way, well, the more you get that done, the shorter window we can get even that loan contingency outlined. And then lastly, once we've got appraisal and loan done, is going to be the other major hoops, which is what we call the walkthrough, and then finally signing and closing of escrow. And those are the last big steps in the purchase process. So when we go, and we'll go through this in another episode called, kind of in general on escrow. Once we've identified the house, we've written up the purchase contract, we know how long it's going to take, your preference as to how you want to purchase the home in the contract, both in inspections, due diligence, appraisal contingency, loan contingency, then walkthrough and closing date. That's going to be in the purchase contract. And then we're going to send it over, and we're going to see what the sellers and the seller's agents have to say. May get accepted, may not. There are varying cases. And what we try to do is we try to have discussions about it, because versus doing a ping pong tennis match, a volley on paper going back and forth. We may have a counter offer or two, things of that nature. Now in today's market, FYI, because things are busy, we may be in a multiple counter situation, because there are many situations, especially in that $400,000 price point home I was talking about, where homes are seeing multiple offers to purchase. We may see an all cash offer, we may see a loan, we may see people paying, at list price, more than list price, maybe just slightly under list price, shorter purchase windows. So if we are in a multiple offer situation, which right now over a while now has been more common than not, we need to make sure we put our best plan forward if this is the house you want. And so again, as your realtor, we're going to be looking at it from that eye. And I know we don't want to pay more than we have to, but we also have to look at it from, okay, if you're going to be enjoying this house over time, and this is where you're going to be in your livelihood over the next 7 to 10 plus years, a few $1,000s here or there is probably going to have a minimal impact over that life cycle, because that is the real estate market we live in. And so again, we're going to look at those properties. So be prepared to maybe have to deal with a multiple offer situation, and understand what you can go to. We will know the boundaries on the purchasability, but if this is the house you want, it's not a situation where, okay, let's throw this out and just see what they say. In a lot of cases nowadays, we have serious sellers out there because we don't have a lot of inventory, and we've got serious buyers out there that we're competing against. So that's important. So we get the offer out there. It may get accepted. It may get countered. If it gets accepted, great. Then we go through the escrow process, which would be the next thing we'll talk about on a future episode. If it gets countered, then that counter may have information that we need to determine, okay, we accept the counter, or we may need to provide a counter back. And a lot of the times that may be a price point. Again, as your realtor, we're going to be in communication with the seller's realtor to make sure we understand what's important to that seller. It could be timing. They may be wanting to go get into another house, and they may need more time. So that being said, because they're living in it right now, they may need, instead of a 30-day close, they may need a 60-day close, or they may need a 30-day close and a 30-day rent back. Again, that's what our job as realtors are to find out, because ultimately sometimes the best deal does not come down to price. Because the other thing too is price is important, but the ability to close the home and do this at the right terms that are beneficial to both the buyer and seller, that's the secret sauce to it all. So that's getting us to the point where we started from the initial meeting, lounging around on Zillow, looking at pretty properties, to meeting with a lender, getting pre-qualified, meeting with your realtor, identifying wants and needs, location, things of that nature, doing a search in a COVID world, looking at properties in a COVID world, and then making an offer and getting to the point where the offer is accepted. Now that's kind of step one. The next step, we're going to talk about the escrow process and kind of how that goes here in Nevada. We'll be recapping the part of that purchase contract because that'll outlines a lot of it. And then two, we'll get back about loans and the various loan programs. So I know we covered a lot of ground today, but hopefully you find this information informative. And like I said, in a COVID situation, hopefully we're out of COVID, or vaccines found, or things are a little more opened up and not socially distanced. We're only kind of removing a couple of items. But right now, our market is really a busy market right now. I think because we had COVID there for a little bit, that pushed our spring selling season more into the summer than we're used to. Again, as I kind of went through some of those interest rates, it gives you a really big idea, of how much money we're talking about when we're talking about a year and a half ago, 4.5% rates to now rates under 3%. and how big an impact that is. And we're dealing with people too, because they may still have their job secured, they're in a good purchasing position, they've already went through a lot of these things. So we're competing against really good buyers, and like I said, we don't have as much inventory to choose from. So that's today's episode. Again, episode 71 of Coffee with Cramer and Colleen. I'm Don Cramer. If you have questions about what we went through or want to set up a buyer's consultation, do us a big favor, hit the comment button or message us. Love to talk to you about it. If you'd like to, like I said, we've got our home buyer guide for the summer 2020. It covers a lot of what we talked about today, and also some updates because of what's going on nationally in the housing market in 2020. So we want to make sure you've got that resource, because right now, your real estate, more now than ever, it matters. So give us a call if we can help you with buying, selling, or investing in real estate. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully we'll catch up with you again here on the next episode of Coffee with Cramer and Colleen. Till next time, wish you a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.